Hi everybody, it's lovely to be with you here today. My name is Laura Clark and I'm a registered dietitian. I qualified a very long time ago, back in 2001, and I worked in the NHS for about 16 years. I have my own freelance consultancy, which is what's put me in front of you today, supporting lots of different people with all sorts of medical conditions in which diet can really help them to have a good quality of life and good health and well-being. The first thing I wanted to talk to you about today is the role of hydration in your care. And dehydration is one of those things that you really need to be aware of. Obviously, as the weather gets warmer, we lose more fluid, and so we really need to be conscious about how much fluid we're drinking. One of the tricky things, I think, is that we don't necessarily know how much fluid we really need. And it's important that the advice that we give you is very individualised. So you'll find that dietitians that you might have come across in your treatment might get out their calculators and look at something like 30 to 35 mils per kilogram of your body weight. But of course, in the real world, you're not going to be getting out a calculator. So really key things are to look at the colour of your catheter output and to really get a sense of whether you're feeling thirsty and whether you're meeting your fluid needs. If it's hot, then you're going to need to drink a little bit more. It's also worth remembering that some foods can be quite dehydrating. So if you have quite a lot of salt in your diet, then this is going to need to be counteracted with making sure that you're drinking enough fluid. What's also good to know, though, is that water is found in lots of foods as well. So we often think about meeting our fluid requirements simply through what we're drinking, whereas actually our food can provide significant amounts of water for us. So if we look at things like fruits and vegetables, some of these have a really high water content, so they're really good to include in your diet. For example, things like strawberries or melon, particularly watermelon, vegetables such as cauliflower, cucumber, courgette, peaches. You can think about the juicy fruits that often go everywhere when you're eating them. They obviously have a much higher water content and they're really good to include in your diet. With fruits and vegetables, of course, you are also going to get lots of added benefits in the form of what we call phytochemicals, and I'll come on to why they're so important for you in a minute. So just a bit of a recap then with hydration and dehydration. Do keep an eye on the colour of your urine output. It should be pale straw-like in colour. Okay, so if it's darker than that, that's an indication that you need to drink a little bit more. What's really important, though, is that you get comfortable with what your own hydration status is like and how much fluid you need to meet that, because we do not want you to be over-drinking and over-hydrating yourself, because we obviously need to protect your bladder and make sure that that it's being emptied appropriately. So I always find that food is a really emotive subject. We all eat, we all have an opinion about which foods and drinks we think are what we love, what we get the most out of, what help us to feel the best version of ourselves. And it's really true to say that the diets that we eat do help our physical and mental well-being. You've probably had it drummed into you from childhood how important fruits and vegetables are, and of course we should all be aiming for the magic 5 a day. Unfortunately, the research around the numbers of fruits and vegetables that really are optimal for our health, and particularly our bowel health, which I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about as well, is that we should be aiming for really a minimum of 5 portions of fruit and veg a day. So when they looked at the study, they realised that we were nowhere near 5. So if they told us that we should eat more than 5, we probably would have all sort of given up and gone home. So the idea of a minimum of 5 is really what we want to be aiming for. And fruits and vegetables give us what's called phytochemicals. These are non-nutritive compounds. So an example of a phytochemical is an antioxidant. And what we know about these phytochemicals is they really help to protect our cells from damage and from aging. We can't find them in a bottle. We can't take them in a pill form. And the magic seems to happen when we eat fruits and vegetables in whole form. We do now have research showing us that we have mental well-being benefits to eating fruits and vegetables. There was a beautiful study called the Lettuce Be Happy study, which showed that people that eat higher quantities of fruits and vegetables tend to have higher levels of life satisfaction and general good moods. So do think about ways in which you can boost the fruits and vegetables in your diet, and think about colour as well, because different colours mean that you're getting different types of phytochemicals. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about now is around your calorie intake and managing your weight. Since you became a wheelchair user, your calorie requirements will be slightly different. We can see from the research that metabolic rate tends to change for those using a wheelchair, and we need to be a little bit mindful of this when we think about how that relates to the foods that you choose to eat and drink on a day-to-day basis. It's also really important that we support your body composition so that you feel that you have the strength and vitality to do the things that you want to do. There is no easy answer for weight management, and we could talk about foods that are high in calories, high in sugars, high in fats, and the things that we perhaps need to be steering clear of. And I've obviously already done a pretty good sales pitch for fruits and vegetables. But I'm also a realist, and I'm quite pragmatic about what's going to work for you in day-to-day life. I'm a huge believer in really helping you set yourself up to win. So quite clearly, there is a place in your diet for all food groups, okay? So that's protein food that's going to help build muscle and strengthen the muscle that you're using through physical activity. We have carbohydrates that are going to help give you fuel to live life. Your fruits and vegetables, as we've talked about, are bringing with them fibre and vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals. And we then have the foods that we see as traditionally higher in fat and sugar. So that might be sweets or biscuits or cakes or oils and fats that you're using in cooking. And there is very much a place for those in the diet as well. And I think we can get a little bit carried away sometimes with being super strict or feeling very judgy of ourselves if we eat foods that traditionally come under the sort of the naughty category. And what I believe is that it's important that you have a really healthy relationship with food. So if you get the sense that food is perhaps becoming a little bit of a coping strategy, if it's something that you reach for when you're perhaps feeling a little bit down or a bit frustrated or a bit stressed, then that's certainly something that you want to look at. Consider your environment and how you set yourself up to win, okay? So the behavioural scientists will tell us that we are very influenced by what we're seeing. We don't think as much as we think we do about the food choices that we make. So if you can have surrounding you foods that are healthier, so the bowl of fruit perhaps placed near the front door before you go out, having lots of vegetables that you can see easily when you open the fridge door. And if you have got the biscuit tin right by your laptop, then maybe think about moving it onto a slightly higher shelf so it's out of sight. All of these little things help you to make healthier choices because, of course, so much of our eating is subconscious. There's also a lovely theory around tagging it on. So if you are trying to make healthier choices and eat in a slightly healthier way, look at ways in which you can tag on these healthy behaviours to things that you do already every day. So it might be things like boiling the kettle to make a coffee in the morning, or brushing your teeth, or taking your various medications that you might be on. If there's habits that you have every day anyway, think about how you can tag something healthy onto that, such as grabbing a piece of fruit or reminding yourself to make your lunch in advance. None of us make great decisions when we head into a supermarket or into the kitchen when we're hungry. If you leave long gaps between meals, you are likely to make much more reactive food choices. You become quite primal in these situations, so you're never going to crave the apples in those scenarios. You're always going to crave the sweeter foods. So set yourself up to win. Don't allow yourself to become over hungry, and think about having a regular meal pattern to your day. You've probably been given quite a bit of advice about bowel care and managing that. I want to touch a little bit on the food side of things in relation to constipation. It's really important that you have a regular bowel habit, and this can be anything from daily to once every 2 or 3 days. As part of your assessment, you should have been asked what your normal bowel habit was like, and really using that as a bit of a benchmark for what we could expect in your bowels now you are a wheelchair user. Fibre is a really important part of bowel health. It helps us to produce a soft, bulky stool that's much easier to pass. Fibre generally falls into two categories. So we have insoluble fibre and soluble fibre. Soluble fibre is found in fruits and vegetables, pulses and lentils, nuts and seeds, and oats. Insoluble fibre tends to be associated with grains that we're eating in whole grain form. So it's the type of fibre that we find in the outer layer of a grain. So that's things like your whole grain breakfast cereals, or your whole grain rice or pasta, for example, or bread even. So it's important to have those different types of fibres in the diet. What's really important though is that you take it step by step. So you must not go from a really low fibre intake to suddenly eating loads of it, because it takes a while for your bowel to adjust to the increased load essentially that you're giving it. And remember, the aim of the game here is that you're producing a really nicely formed stool that's easy to pass. So alongside having a little bit more fibre in your diet, you also want to try and make sure that you're drinking enough as well. So those two things go hand in hand. Couple of other bits I wanted to mention just in relation to your bowel health. If you have had courses of antibiotics, then it might be appropriate for you to look at taking a probiotic. So this is a live bacterial supplement, which we can see helps to reduce the incidence of diarrhea that can often be associated with taking antibiotics. There's lots of different probiotics out there. Do discuss that with your healthcare professionals so that you get the right one for you. But that's certainly something to bear in mind. Just thinking about some of the practical aspects in relation to your diet and your dexterity, what you're able to manage is something that we need to take into consideration. And this is really where the occupational therapists in your team can be really helpful with all sorts of suggestions and ways in which they can support you to eat the broad variety of foods and drinks that you would like in your diet. So make sure that you speak to them. They can sort out various systems that attach to your wheelchair and various ways in which you can continue to eat normally with foods and drinks that support your well-being. So finally, I want to thank you very much for giving me your attention. I hope that the tips that I've shared have been helpful and given you an opportunity to reflect on your food and drink and how that fits into your life now. Take your time, enjoy your food, savour the mouthfuls, and enjoy that whole food experience as much as you can. And I wish you well.